But as you can see straight away from the mulligan, Ben does have that KLSF to help him with that death roll, and it's not exactly too bad of a shout. But of course, if you look on the other end, even though Bilbz hasn't got the best of hands, I think it was what Leroy once said, if you're odd pally, just hero power until he can't hero power anymore to that point.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the KLSF just doesn't do too much. Obviously, it's great for buffing your deck, but in terms of board presence, Bilbz can kind of just ignore it and not really worry about it too much. The Witchwood Grizzly as well. Obviously, it's not really what you want to draw from hand, but it's definitely just pretty good against our Palin, and quite often they end up with a fairly small hand. Grizzly has 3 attacks, so even if they Fungal Mancer or level up minions, it still contests them. And overall, just a really good card against Paladin. Even when you take a health reduction of 4 or 5 health, it's just pretty powerful.
Yeah, and of course, he will have to be careful at this stage, because if he puts that Giggling Inventor down, he does have that, sorry, Bilbz does have that Blood Knight to play in that future turn. But if we look at Ben's side, it's not too bad. He does have the egg, does have to play dead to initiate Death Rattle later on.
Yeah, definitely. It'll be a very interesting choice here for Ben, whether he does actually play the play dead or not, because I mean he uses his coin, which means he can't go coin into a 5-drop. But if he doesn't coin into a if he's going to coin into a 5-drop anyway, then the play dead's just not actually coming out for a few turns. So it's really interesting here. I think maybe he should use the play dead this turn, just get the minion on board. He's got a flanking strength for next turn, and then he can play his 5-drop, and that's probably just going to be powerful enough here.
Yeah, that's not too much of a bad shout, and he'll have to decide here whether he wants to trade with the 0-3 to get another one out of the board in case he thinks Ben does have another option to, of course, get that Death Rattle out. But he's like, nope, not even going to bother with that, going straight for face.
Yep, Bilbz just going to go wide. He's got the level up, ignore everything, make all the dudes, make Ben try and have to clean up as many as he can, which is 2. And 2 is just not that many when there's 5.
Yeah, he's even going as far as using a strike on one of them, because he knows that there's that possibility, of course, using that level up, which he does have, and he can play. And to back himself up from that, he does have that Fungal Mancer to play. And another thing to take into account is the fact, you know, he has that Divine Favor for later on, has that Blood Knight if Ben does use that Inventor as well. So it's a lot of options for him, considering what his mulligan was like at the start.
Yeah, definitely. The Giggling vs Grizzly is always a really interesting choice, because you want the Grizzly to actually kill the 3-drops, whereas you want the Giggling to block bigger hits. But Giggling's not actually that good against Paladin. Obviously, we see the Blood Knight, which is a great tech against Giggling anyway. But Giggling's really good at blocking lots and lots of small attacks. And good at blocking big attacks. And Paladin has lots of small attacks, which kind of naturally beats the Giggling Inventor.
Yeah, this is the problem you see. Yeah, of course, he's got plenty of answers, and I think he was trying to decide whether he wants to use a Fungal Mancer now, or maybe he can make better use of his level up. But I think using a level up at this stage is probably one of the best ways, because having at least 4 dudes down, I think that's, you couldn't really ask for too much more in that retrospect.
Yeah, definitely. Ben's board, obviously Ben's really low on health now, but his board's not the worst. He already kills 2. He can play the Grizzly. I mean, he knows that Bilbz has these Blood Knights in the deck, and I think he's going to get the bad news here when this big Blood Knight comes down.
Goodbye, Divine Shield, and hello, many +3/+3s to this stage. And yeah, I think he's just double checking just to make sure it is the right play. I think he knows it is, so he's going to get a nice juicy 9/9 on the board.
Yeah,
and now Ben expected it, I think.
Yeah, this doesn't push a huge amount of damage this turn, but this 9/9 is just going to be so difficult to deal with, and that's the big issue here, I think, for Ben.
You can't even trade it, can he? Because even if he puts his weapon down, it's only doing 8 damage, and even that retrospect, I was a bit worried, and I thought Bilbz wasn't going to trade with that, with that one too. But no, you're absolutely right. Even if those taunts weren't there, like, you still have a major issue trying to take it down, but you may have that issue for the rest of the game.
Yeah, it's just so difficult now for Ben. I mean, once you're down to this sort of health total and you just don't have any kind of breathing room, I mean, even a Rexar top deck's not going to do the job here. It will buy you a turn, like I said before, but I just don't think it's going to be good enough.
Just trying to see what he can do from here. He obviously can trade off the 3-3 and a 3-2 quite comfortably. You can maybe get a Grizzly on the board as well, just to hold him back. But even then, he's got that Fungal Mancer as well, so you can trade with that with the 3-8. And if you look here, still got a bit of time, but maybe not enough.
Yeah, I don't know how much time he needs here. Bill was obviously a bit upset at the position, how this positioning's worked out.
I think it's got lethal. Oh no, no.
It would be lethal if the 2-3 and the 1-1 were together, but they're not, which is just a bit unfortunate for Bilbz here, I think.
Yeah, I don't think he expected it, in all honesty, which is fair enough. And yeah, that's literally the only misplay he's made this game. Apart from that, it's been quite solid, in all fairness. He's made sure he keeps the trades up well. He made sure not to go for that egg right at the beginning to cause any issues. And he knew that he would be very unlucky if Ben had another death rat, anything else like a another Stalker or another Play Dead to, of course, initiate that death rattle. But he could be facing his first loss here.
Yeah, it's not looking too good for him here. As we can see, the damage coming through sets him to 1. Rexar's now not good enough, and that's just going to be a very quick game 1 going to Bilbz.
Yeah, that was a very quick game 1, to be fair, considering the circumstances. I can't remember, I think Ben did have the Kalesef at the start, but even then it didn't really make too much of a difference because couldn't just hold anything back. I think there was one stage Ben was hoping that maybe he'll trade with the egg to make him think that he's going to have a Play Dead, another Stalker to initiate that death rattle. But even then, like, it would have made a little bit of a difference, but it was so far ahead. I think as soon as he had those 4 dudes on the board to level up with, it was kind of like, not his saving grace, but he had them since the beginning anyway. And the fact that Ben didn't really have the opportunity to kind of trade him off, it kind of said it for itself.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Ben just, the Kaleseth obviously is what you want on turn 2, but when the Paladin can just keep going as wide as they did, and then having buffs to back that up as well with the level up, like you said, of the Fungal Mancer, it's just so hard for them to do anything about it because, I mean, you just don't have any AoE in Paladin.
This is the issue.
Yeah.
To that extent, but if it did have AoE at that stage, then yeah, he would have a serious issue, and we'd probably be saying, well done, Ben, instead, in that much respect. But so, as you can see at the moment, of course, Bilbz does take that first game, and the only 2 he's got to play with, of course, the Token Druid and the Odd Rogue. And, they're pretty good matchup in this kind of situation, especially with Ben Shadowrock Shaman. They can obviously deplete that quite easily. Yeah,
definitely. I mean, Shadowrock Shaman, if you play Kaleseth, you're pretty good against decks like the Paladin. Obviously, that's now out the way, so that's not going to be an issue. And Rogue as well, you're pretty favoured against that. So Ben was probably looking for that. You really needed Wild Pyromancers to make Token Druid much better because Token Druid's just such a difficult matchup for you if you don't have Kaleseth as an extra AoE activator, because they make a board that has Death Rattle, summon 2/2s, and then you have to use 2 AoEs to clear that. But you only have 4 AoEs in the deck, and then eventually they just make a board that you're just not able to kill.
Yeah, Ben is seriously going to struggle with this, and I like what he's done here is the fact that he knows it's his Shadowrock is going to struggle the most against his deck, so he's thinking, well, at least give himself 2 opportunities to try and get rid of it as soon as possible, and if he does win against his Token Druid, then it'll be okay. Well, not okay, but it'll be a lot better scenario compared to what it'll be later on.
Yeah, definitely. We see the early Shadowrock pickup. That's sometimes quite useful because if you can get the Hagatha off, then your Shadowrock has the battle cry to cast the 3 AoE again, and then that's just an extra form of AoE that you've been able to generate out of your deck, but it's so difficult for them to do.
But this is very worrying as well. I think Bilbz was taking the mickey a little bit because, of course, he's got Wild Growth, and what's he going to do next? Of course, he's going to coin his Nourished out, so he's loving life, and yeah, Ben's really feeling it at the moment. That last game, Bilbz did a great job making sure his dude stayed alive, and of course I think it's more starting to become counter picks rather than actually the matchups now, because of course even with that Kalesef in that last game for the Hunter, that made absolutely no help at all because he couldn't trade. What's the point of having it if you can't trade at all? And now Bilbz has gone from Wild Growth into calling out Nourish straight off the bat. You couldn't ask for a better start. You can even, if you wanted to, you could even Malview in like so early on, but of course there's not really too much need to do that. he could Whisper the Gods, but even then, it's only playing for 5/1/1s, and I'm not sure if he wants to do that, considering he's got an Acolyte as well as a Mana Tide on the board.
Yeah, that was the issue of using the coin, that you've made your Whispering Woods a bit weaker here. It made sense going into the Malfurion, and you're going to potentially just give the Acolyte an extra card unless he chooses Poison here, which he actually does, which kind of makes sense, but it's also a little bit weaker to things like Saronite Chain Gang. The Acolyte is just going to stick around. It's really difficult for Bilbz because he wants the Soul of the Forest to go with the Whispering Woods. That's kind of the just natural power play that deck has. But he just doesn't have the option here, really. And that's sometimes going to be quite difficult for him, just because if he ever just has to play the first Whispering Woods, and Ben's able to just use one AoE that didn't need to be a double AoE, then it's just not great for him overall, because he just needs to generate a board that Ben can't clear. And if he keeps generating boards Ben can clear, he's going to run out of board generators.
Yeah, this is a major problem as well. That's one thing to take into account and stuff, of course. I always feel like in this kind of scenario, even you haven't got Soul of the Forest, you always want to play those Whisper of the Gods anyway, but even now, it's not going to make too much difference. And as you can see, in this kind of matchup, Hex isn't really that much of a viable option until maybe later in the game when things get a bit close. But even now, if you look, you know, Earthshock won't make too much of a difference, but he's got that Volcano anyway, so at least he's got something to deal with the Whisper of the Gods into Power of the Wild. But it's like you were mentioning just now, you know, does he want to use something like that so early without Solar Forest? It's very, you know, it's a big question, but it's a decision he needs to make. He's already had a really good start anyway with getting his mana count up very high. He just needs to maybe just play it safe, play patiently, let the cards come to him, because you know what Token Druid is like. Sometimes at some stage where if you use his Whisper of the Gods too early, or some of his other small minions, you know, you can lose steam pretty quick.
Yeah, definitely. Like you were saying, the Hex is very difficult to use. There's the only target is sort of the 5/5 from the Ultimate Infestation, the Violet Teacher, and then maybe the Arcane Tyrant if you consider that as well. And all in all, it's just very difficult for you to get value out of this Hex in a meaningful way that you're happy spending 4 mana doing. Often you need to Hex those, but they're already on boards that are quite big, so if the board's already quite big, you need to be Volcanoing or Lightning Storming it, and then do you have the mana to spend 4 mana on the Hex as well? It's just very, very difficult to use.
Yeah, it's an extremely hard decision. He just wants to try and use his mana count as much as he can, which is, you know, completely understandable, but sometimes patience is quite key considering the circumstances. He's very, very far from taking any damage or losing this any way, shape or form, so he does have the time to be patient and to chill and just to wait at this stage.
Yeah, I mean, the Ultimate Infestation coming down on turn 10 is obviously going to fill Bilbz's hand. He's then going to have the threats. And I think that's kind of just fine for Bilbz, because they just don't really have the Shaman just doesn't have the ability to punish this Token Druid going slow. So Token Druid can kind of just take its time with this one and then just kind of get there over after the Ultimate Infestation turn, when they've had a couple of removal spells forced out from the Shaman.
And even later on, you know, he can use his Infestation, and maybe if he gets like 1 or 2 Arcane Tyrants out of it, you can put those straight down due to the fact with Arcane Tyrants, of course. If you use a spell 5 or more, you can put that straight down. So these little things here and there do make up, but we'll have to see if he wants to take that risk later on. But he may have to use that Infestation to try and draw this Soul of the Forest. But if he does, he needs to make sure one of the minions he gets, or one of the cards he gets, is an Arcane Tyrant, because he can, of course, overdraw.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to just see quite liberal use of these removal cards here, just because, like you said, you don't want to overdraw. Potentially could swipe, but also I think he's just going to accept that if he doesn't get a Tyrant, he'll overdraw a card, and that's going to be fine. Overdrawing the 1, it's kind of only exactly Soul of the Forest. You're obviously a bit sad to lose things like Savage Roar and Branching Paths, but I don't think they're the biggest deal in the world here.
No, I don't think they are at all. And Ben's, you know, got some life drinkers of his own, which he will take into account, because, you know, we'll get to a stage where if he does use that Shadow Work and doesn't go all too well, then at least he's going to have 3 on the board, and when that Shadow Work gets used, he gets 12 back each time. But as you can see, he's got a Plague, not going to make too much of a difference. I would hope for him to get an Arcane Giant so he doesn't overdraw. And we'll see if he does actually get one. I assume he doesn't, because he's ended his turn so quickly.
Yeah, it doesn't look like we've got one coming down.
But it does get 2 Soul of the Forest,
Yeah,
though.
the Soul of the Forest are really key with these Whispering Woods because now he's going to be able to use Whispering Woods Soul. If Ben has the double removal, then he's going to be able to just say, well, you're overloaded now. You don't have enough mana to do that again. Go again. And then, unfortunately, he doesn't actually have the Savage Roars of the Branching Paths to follow it up. But Ben doesn't know that. So Ben has that advantage here.
But he could be making assumptions, couldn't he? And of course, next turn he can Whisper the Gods, he can do Soul of the Forest, and then use Power of the Wild straight afterwards. You know, just to be, you know, a little bit more of a pain. And even though Ben does have an MC tech, it's not going to make a massive amount of difference. Now, losing that Nourish, it's, don't get me wrong, it's a little bit of a shame, but let's be honest, he's got another infestation anyway. So I think if there's any card he wanted to lose, that second Nourish is definitely something that he, of course, didn't need.
Yeah, the Nourish isn't too big a deal. I like what Ben's done here, where he's gone as wide as possible as he could on the board. Going into the Whispering Soul turn, the ideal for you is to be in a position where you can trade things and then AoE, so you don't have to use 2 AoEs, and he's kind of done that for himself here.
Do you think he's not used Power of the Wild this time because he's trying to bait him into using Volcano and all those bits and pieces?
Yeah, it's also because it doesn't change anything dying on the the Acolyte already has 2 attack. None of Ben's AoEs do 1 because he doesn't have the Wild Pyromancer. So you don't actually gain anything by front loading the mana of the Power of the Wild. So it's much better to try and force out the AoE and then Power of the Wild to the cleared minions, I think.
Yeah, because of course even now it can still Soul of the Forest straight away again. But it depends how cost effective he wants to be, how efficient he wants to do with his spending. As you can see now, he can easily trade 2 of them off, but you know, does he want to put a 7-2 into a 2-2 at this stage? You know, he may have to, considering the circumstances. And another thing as well, which a very good point you made, was the fact that, of course, if he has a Savage Roar, then you know it won't look too good for him.
Yeah, obviously we see the Lightning Storm pick up, which is pretty big here. So yeah, I think Ben's gonna just have to accept that he might just have to throw away this Storm and hope that it's actually all the buffs in Bilbz's hand as opposed to all the board reloads again. And obviously we can see it is the board reloads.
We'll have to see exactly what's going to go on here. So his Volcano's gone, his Storm's gone. So right now he hasn't got any AoEs apart from the Hagatha, but we'll have to see how this turns out. We'll have to see if he does decide to use Whisper the Gods and then the Soul of the Forest again, but not play that Power of the Wild. Because he's going to know he's going to have a Hagatha at some stage. And one thing to take into account as well, he's going to notice that there's a few cards in his hand which he's going to notice that he's not used for quite a while. So he may even make that assumption that he does have a Hagatha.
Yeah, definitely. The Hagatha isn't too scary by itself, though, because if Bilbz isn't able to trade the board off beforehand, if Ben isn't able to trade off Bilbz's board beforehand, then the Hagatha just clears the first set of the death rattle, the first set and procs the death rattles, and then the branching paths will just get you there. And Ben just has to be really concerned about that here, I think.
Yeah, I think he knows, yeah. Because for a token druid to get 2 Whisper the Gods and 2 Soul of the Forest this early, it's, you know, not saying it's rare, but, you know, you have to be in a pretty good spot for that kind of scenario. And I think he knows now that he didn't expect him to have anything else. And like I mentioned before, he can put that Hagatha down, but again, when you get all those 2/2s on the board, he can just Power the Wild, and then obviously get the rest of minions up again, another 2. So you're looking at, what, all of them being 5/5. Sorry, 5/5? What am I talking about? Sorry, 5/2s. And then, yeah, you could have lethal, but we'll have to see if he'll clean up or not.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is just so scary for Ben. The MC techs help a lot here. But I don't know if 1's going to be good enough. It's also scary to just trade 1 minion because you turn a 1/1 into a 2/2, give him more damage. I think it's much better for Ben here to actually just push for lethal and say, okay, sometimes Bilbz doesn't have it here. And even just choosing to play the Zola here for tempo more so than anything, I think is very smart.
Yeah, because I was just trying to work things out here. So, of course, if he uses Power of the Wild and the other spell as well, of course, everything would be 4/2s. That would be 24, 28, including the swipe. So he's just missing it. Oh, no, hold on a second. think he will have lethal from the top of my head, or he could be
6,
31.
12, 18, 21, 25. Yeah, I think that's lethal.
Yeah.
Does he have the mana to do it all? So the branching paths is 10. Power of the Wild is 5. So that's 16, 21. I think it's actually just short because of the MC tech.
My thoughts are plagued.
Yeah, because I was just trying to work out for the top of my head, because obviously with Power of the Wild, obviously it's all +1/+1. But supposedly with the branching, of course, if he does everything, because if you think about it, if he uses Power of the Wild, everything's 2/2. If he uses the branching, it's all 4/2. And then if he uses Hero Power after that, and actually, yeah, it might be a bit too late. Yeah, it's literally just missing. Yeah, it's literally just missing. Yeah, by literally like 2.
Yeah, it's very.
You can't Hero Power. Yeah, yeah, it's a shame we don't have 12 mana in this game. As if, yeah, I wasn't taking into account, but no, it's very, very close. It's a shame really because it's. I think literally I need 2 HP away from actually finishing the job.
Yeah, unfortunately having to trade here. It's still not the worst position to be in. I mean, this is still quite a big board. We can see the Hagatha though, which is going to end up coming down. It's going to clean up 3 of these minions, leave 3 of the minions after the death rattles. Volcano pickup could change that, but I think it's unlikely. I think ideally Ben wants to just get Hagatha into his Shadowwalk pool. It's interesting if he chooses to play the Shadowwalk now, because it plays Glacial Shards and Mind Control techs. But I think, given that you saw that he didn't have the Savage Roars last turn, you just take the Hagatha this turn and accept that it's going to be okay.
Yeah, he's had a decent hand the last few turns, but sadly for him, the Savage Roar, the one piece he needs, is not been too helpful. So, as you can see with Ben, at least he can take these minions out. We'll leave 3 2/2s on the board straight afterwards, but like we mentioned, Bilbz doesn't have that Savage Roar, so there's nothing really too much he can do at this stage.
Yeah, Bilbz can sort of just go for the Ultimate Infestation this turn if he wants, kind of finish off drawing the rest of his deck, get all the Savage Roars and things, or just alternatively just go for the Giggling Inventors, actually build a board, maybe go for an Oaken Summons, all things. He's got options here. I think he kind of needs to go for the Ultimate Infestation because he needs to close this game out quickly. This gets a 5/5 on the board, it makes the Tyrants free as well, so we're going to be able to see the Tyrant come down. Obviously, there are both Roars. Both Tyrants as well is quite big because they don't get cleaned up by one Shadowwalk, which is a big deal here, I think.
Yeah, because even if he uses his Volcano now, there's 19 damage on the... Sorry, 19 damage on the board, so 19 health on the board. So even then, there's a potential, like, 1 or even 2 minions can still stay alive at this stage. Maybe you can use a Hex to clean up, but it's a waste. I'll probably use a Shard maybe just to hold one of them back.
Yeah, it's just going to go for the Shadowwalk
anyway.
It has the Mind Control tech, it's got Life Drinker, it heals you, it shards as well. Then you can replay the Glacial Shard if you don't get a playable Shadowwalk. But Ben does get the playable Shadowwalk, and I think that's actually going to lock Bilbz out the game. It's not quite lethal, but I believe because it clears the... There's always the risk that the second Shadowwalk kills the first one and then fails, though. So Ben considering just going for the Glacial Shard here.
Yeah, it's very tempting to say least. And of course, he's got another Life Drinker as well if it gets to that stage where he's low enough to kind of finish the job. But of course, Bilbz will arm up for free straight after that anyway.
Yeah, definitely. This is... Okay, he's got another Shadowwalk now, so this is looking pretty safe for Ben. And it looks like Ben's going to be able to just close this game out from here. I don't think Bilbz is going to be able to connect enough damage from nothing. He's on 1 health now. I don't think it's there for Bilbz, unfortunately. The second Shadowwalk in hand is known, so I think Bilbz is probably just going to be able to give this one up.
Yeah, because even I think with this matchup, I think this is the only matchup I feel Shadowwalk could have the best chance in actually winning, and luckily for Ben, that was actually the case, to be fair. Because I think against the other deck, he would have struggled a lot more.
Yeah, definitely. So with Bilbz being on 7 health, Ben has to try and figure out if there's a way to make this lethal.
Yeah, just have a look at the moment. He hasn't got any AoEs to kind of clear anything up, but even if he puts a Shadowwalk down, it's... Oh, it does have a Volcano, I suppose.
Yeah, I think he wants to play this 9-mana Shadowwalk. So I think he just makes the attacks and then plays the Shadowwalk. He just has to kind of think if he wants to play anything else from hand first. But I don't think you do. I think he should just play the Shudderwock, and then he can... If the Shudderwock fails, he's in such a good position. I don't think it will lead to any kind of mislethal anyway. I don't think it will cost him the game if the Shudderwock fails. Looks like he's opting not to, though. Instead choosing to just go for the Life Drinker, juice up the last Shudderwock in hand. I mean, I think it's kind of all roads lead to victory here, but... Oh.
It does now, because after that Earth Shock.
Yeah, that's one way to do it. Get the Earth Shock for the silence lethal. Yeah,
it was a shame. Those two Savage Roars, they came in the end, but of course a little bit too late. And yeah, that is a talking point, really. It's the fact that he had the 2 Whisper of Gods and he had the 2 Soul of the Forest perfectly fine. He had the Branch and Power of the Wild to try to upgrade him to try and make that kind of push. But yeah, just missing just one Savage Roar to try and, you know, clean up and finish the job. But sadly for him, Ben Shudderwock came in just when it was necessary.
Yeah, Ben piloting that quite well. I mean, it's an unfavoured matchup, so it's always going to be difficult to try and figure out what to do. And I think he played around AoE buffs that he should assume are there because of just how the hands played out for Bilbz, and doing a great job being able to take it home.
That's right, and as you see now, it's only Bilbz, Token Druid and Odd Rogue left, and of course, as you can see on Ben's side, he's also got the Quest Rogue and the Death Runner Hunter. Now, with his Token Druid, do you feel like it will struggle against one of his decks quite hard? Because I know with things like, with Quest Rogue, it can be okay, but it depends how quickly it'll get the quest done and get everything all out in time. Because of course, you know, with Token Druid, yes, you're fair enough, you can do the same thing, but it depends on exactly how quickly you want to use Whisper of Gods or anything like that. But speaking of Quest Rogue, anyway, so I can take the whole Token Druid out of the matter. As you can see, it does have 2 diamonds, but one thing obviously to take into consideration is that Bilbz does have that Thug to play straight down. But then again, if you look at Ben's side, it can always prep into Vanish if things get a little bit out of hand. And of course, the fact that nice to get that card draw.
Yeah, the Vanish is key in sort of every matchup that Rogue struggles with. Quest Rogue, that is. Odd Rogue is another one of those matchups where the Vanish is really good. Ben's kind of deliberating whether to keep the preparation here with the Vanish, because obviously it's a great combination, but potentially just leaves your hand really sort of empty and forces you to be in a position where you need to prep Vanish because you didn't keep any other cards. So opting obviously in the end to keep it, and I think that's probably a right decision, but this is a matchup where Quest Rogue just really needs to slow down the Odd Rogue, because if you can get to sort of turn 7 or 8 and not be horrendously behind, then you're probably pretty close to completing a quest, if not completing it, and able to just clean up the Odd Rogue things. And if you can get taunts down, Odd Rogue doesn't really have a way to be able to get through taunts. And that's a really big factor in a lot of these games, because the only sort of reach damage they have that goes straight over taunts is SI7s. They often come down early if they're available, but it is only 2, so it's not the most amount of burst.
No, that's very true, to be fair. And of course, you know, he does have that shard anyway to delay the Thug at any time. It depends when he uses it, though. Some people may use it as a quest, so there's a possible chance where he might want to wait. But, you know, Ben's clever enough. He knows that most people at this stage, especially with Odd Rogue, do have a Thug for turn 3 anyway, which he has done. But, of course, one thing I was going to think of is the fact that he wants to use that shard now as well as the prep and the Vanish, so at least so it comes back straight afterwards. But
yeah, Sonya's often a very key card in these matchups, just because if you have a charge minion, such as your Stone Tusk Boar or your South Sea Deckhand, or the Brush minion, so that would be your Vicious Scalehide. Obviously, that's a little bit more expensive, but it means you can just play the Sonya, play the minion, charge it into a minion over and over, keep getting them back as 1-mana 1/1s that have charge, and then that just juices up your quest so quickly. So I think that's definitely key here. Ben needs something to go with the Sonya. At the moment, it's kind of looking like he might be forced to use a Preparation Vanish pretty early here, which is not really where he wants to be, I don't think.
Yeah, it's not really looking too good for him, but to be fair, there's nothing really too else he can play. I think he will have to use that shard anyway. Of course, he will prep into Vanish, like I mentioned earlier, because that Thug will get way out of hand, and nothing really too much he can do about it. Of course, he could have put the Giggling Inventor down next turn, but even then, it's kind of just throwing it away, and it's not really a key piece for him to actually use. But at least he's got the Elven anyway to draw 2 more cards. Hopefully another one will be a shard for him anyway. But yeah, the talking point is that Sonya. It's the fact that you need to try and make some kind of use out of it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if we just think about how Odd Rogue loses, it's if that scale hide, if it is a scale hide, that just heals up so much damage. And like I said before, the Odd Rogue doesn't have that much reach over a taunt. So if Ben can get a taunt down in the form of these giggling inventors or something like that, then with scale hides or Sonya's behind it, then Bilbz is just going to really struggle to close the game out.
Yeah, it doesn't decide to put the fuck down this time, which is fair enough. It's just going to play it safe, putting both the Diamonds down again just to be a little bit of a nuisance. But of course, the main reason why he's put so many more minions down compared to the Thug is, of course, the giggling inventor. So at least now that get the fine shields out of the way, at least trade one of them off. And for now, you know, trying to put as much pressure on Ben as possible before he gets this quest done.
Yeah, this was definitely a risk by Ben. I'm not sure I liked the pointing out this Glacial Shard because he doesn't have the second one, and cards like SI7 Agent and Deckhand are quite possible to be in hand. I understand why he's done it, but I think it's just a risk that he was in a position where he didn't need to take that risk. I get that he wants to, you know, just play the Sonya and then sort of finish all these off, but it's just not a good position. I think it's a risk he didn't need to take in that position, especially with how weak he already was to things like Blood Knight. And
you took the words right out of his mouth as well. Literally, you were talking about obviously the agent, of course it can trade, but to be fair, he had so much value in all those minions, he had so many on the board, he was able to trade off anyway, so that was of course a big help to him in that stage. But even now it might just be a little bit too late, but we'll have to see how it goes, because when he gets that fuck down and the deckhand as well later on, it's going to be quite difficult for not Ben to get his quest done, but maybe to follow suit from there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Sonya with the deckhand help, now the deckhand's on 3, but the Leroy going to just clean up the game for Bilbz here. And that's kind of what you expect, especially when Bilbz was able to develop a board where he was able to go wide. Going wide in that kind of matchup makes it really hard for Quest Rogue to interact with what you can do, because they have the Glacial Shard, as we saw there. But if it's only freezing one minion's not good enough when you've got a board of 3 or 4 that all hit quite hard. Yeah, that kind of makes sense to me, because of course, you know, he had that 9-9, which, you know, I think that's twice in 3 games now he's managed to make really good use of that Blood Knight. Of course, it's only in 2 of the decks, but both decks, both times he managed to get advantage of that giggling inventor, didn't he? So it kind of shows what's going to happen. But of course, the last one left to take into account now is, of course, Bilbz' Token Druid. Now, the only things which is going to come up against now is the Quest Rogue again and that Death Roll Hunter, and it's going to be quite a tough one, because with that Quest Rogue, of course, if you don't really get enough to get that quest done, like you saw with Ben earlier, yeah, sure, he had vanished all those bits and pieces, but I think with the not the Quest Rogue, sorry, with the other deck back then, you could see that he was still struggling no matter what he could have done against the odd Rogue. So with the Token Druid, do you feel like there's much of a chance where he can actually defeat this Death Roll Hunter or this Quest Rogue at all? Yeah, I think so. I think Token Druid sort of it's slightly favoured going into both. The Rogue just needs the Vanishes to deal with it, and the Druid needs to not be able to keep generating boards. From the Hunter side of it, though, it's really an interesting matchup where both are trying to do these things where they create boards that the other deck can't deal with, because neither the Token Druid doesn't run hard removal and Hunter doesn't run AoE. So it's definitely an interesting one, but I think Quest Rogue is going to be the real sticking point for Ben here. Bilbz' lineup is so favoured against, every deck is just favoured against Quest Rogue. And if Bilbz is able to get early pressure out of the Token Druid, you know, if he can just play, if he just risks a Whispering Woods on turn 4 and there's no Fan of Knives, he can then get things like Savage Roar that just kill Ben on turn 5. Yeah, this is obviously what he's going to hope for now, and you know, there's a few things he does have already. At least he does have that Nourish and to keep him at bay for later on, but look at Benza, of course, he has a Shadow Step and a Brewmaster already, and he does have that prep for Vanish later on. So, you know, if he plays his cards right, he could get this a lot easier, especially with another Engineer on board now. Yeah, definitely. 2 Engineers really early is obviously very, very powerful. I mean, if we look, he's already played 1, he's got 2, 3 in hand, 4 with the Brewmaster. He's only got his quest done in hand. Obviously, he has to spend their turns playing mana, but with the preparation as well, you're just looking quite good from Ben's side of things. it's definitely a lot better than you were in your previous game, Quest Rogue. That's for sure.
Oh yeah, in comparison, yeah, that was just an absolute nightmare. It's annoying with Quest Rogue. It's one of the situations where if you get all the pieces of the puzzle straight away, and of course with the Shadow Step and Vanish, you'll know there's bits and pieces with the prep, then yeah, sure, it's fair enough, you can get done quite quickly. But there's sometimes where, you know, you'll choose a minion to kind of get the quest done with, but then again, things get so out of hand, you have to use those same minions to kind of trade, and, you know, you have to use something else to get the quest done. It's, you know, it can be a little bit of a pain, but, you know, this is the kind of hand Ben really wanted, and he's got 2 Sonyas, so yeah, that's nice.
Mimic podding Sonya is definitely an interesting one. Often against Quest Rogue, when your hand gets really full, which it does when you complete Quest on Novice Engineer, people stop tracking. They don't track where your Mimic podded card was very well, so potentially Bilbz could miss the Sonya being Mimic podded. But yeah, so we're on. This is the 4th Brewmaster, the 4th Novice Engineer now with the Brewmaster. Potentially can just switch with double Sonya and Stone Tusk Boar. You could potentially just switch to doing the quest with something else. It's quite easy to switch at this point to things like the Stone Tusk Boar in hand, because it can just charge it in endlessly.
Yeah, this is the option at this stage. You know, you've got so many ways you can actually get this quest done now, like you mentioned before. And with the Sonya, it just helps so much. And he's got 2, so, you know, not saying he's being greedy, but yeah, he's got plenty to at least get done anyway, so we have to decide what he wants to do from there. He does have a Mimic pod anyway, so he does want to try and get 2 of something else when he can. That prep's not going to make too much difference unless a Vanish comes down, or if he wants to get the Mimic pod out now and still have that 5 mana to play with. We'll have to see exactly what he wants to do. He's got plenty of options, in all fairness, but you've got to look at Bilbz, so he does have that Nourish, so he can, you know, get that additional 2 mana, or, you know, he could card draw if he likes, but if he has an Infestation for later, if it makes it that far, then it's not really too bad, because he can get those 2 mana crystals, he can also use the Tyrant, but he can also use Power of the Wild after he gets those 2 mana crystals as well, just to be a little bit of a pain on the board.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely an awkward spot here for Ben. He has to make decisions about what he wants to do, because looks like he's just going to go for the board play. Bilbz might, like I said before, might not realise there's a second Sonya here, so you might think this is just a play to clean up some minions. I mean, maybe he can read into it that that's actually quite a weak play here, just using the Sonya and the board to kill 2 1/1s and leaving the Sonya on board. But it's kind of really hard to punish. I mean, you have to kill the Sonya. You can't ever leave that up. So that's already decided effectively here. But it's definitely an interesting one, because Ben's so far along on this Novice. It's kind of, you want to complete the quest on the Novice, but now the Boar Sonya is just so clean.
Yeah, it's at this point now where I think Ben knows that he needs to have no choice but to at least clear this up one way or another anyway. And it's like I mentioned before, he could have at least used that Nourish and get those extra 2 mana crystals down to use that Power of the Wild, which he does. And even though he trades off, Bilbz is still in a good spot, but at this moment in time, Ben has plenty of options, but he needs to decide what he wants to do first.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely an awkward spot here. So he already played 2 Stone Tusk Boars the prior turn, so this Sonya would let him complete the quest on it, but it's just pretty scary, because if you're Bilbz and you have any minions here when the Sonya quest complete comes down, you're just going to go in with any buffs you have, and yeah, Ben is going to have to go for this play. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think let's hope in some way he can have it and also get the quest done as well, but he won't have the mana for that, which is a shame, but one way or another, compared to last game, at least he can get the quest done this time.
Yeah, definitely. The thing is that this is just so much damage from Bilbz. I mean, Ben's able to clean up, maybe freeze 1 minion. If he freezes, it's a lot less damage, but if he doesn't go for the freeze, this is 11 damage on board. The Savage Roar is another 8, so that's 19 damage. So it's not quite enough. So Bilbz might be in quite a poor spot still for just pushing for lethal damage. So maybe it isn't what he's going to go for. The Nourish is a very, very good card here to pick up, though. Here's a hand that doesn't really do too much by itself, and that's kind of going to let him draw things that do things.
Draw things that do things, I like that.
Yeah, draw things that do things.
Oh, it kind of makes sense. Hopefully we'll get something a bit more helpful to, well, another Power of the Wild is definitely going to help, because at least he can abuse that Violet T-shirt a little bit more. But not only that, he can also take out the other Sonya as well. It's not really much use for the Sonya now, but at least that way he can be a little bit more safe.
You don't want to leave the Sonya on the board when it's going into 4/4s, because then the Stone Tusk board can trade into the Teacher, the Arcane Tyrant, and then value trade one of the other minions. So
that's true.
I think he has to kill it, to be honest, as unfortunate as it is.
Yeah, he has literally no choice. But getting that Powder Wild and that Spellstone as well, you couldn't really ask for too much more. Maybe he could have got Solar Force as well, which he does have, but sadly for him, he's only on 3 mana, so there's not really too much he could have done.
Yeah, I like using this Savage Roar to push for damage here now. You're maybe not going to be able to get more out of it just because you've got other things you can do with your mana, but you know it's going into their quest complete turn. Unfortunately for Bilbz, it's going to be a prep quest into Giggling Inventor, which is so difficult for them to deal with.
And another thing to point out as well is the fact that Ben hasn't had one vanish all game. Like, you know, even in the last one, you know, at least he had one vanish to try to get all the card removals done, but now he's just having a serious issue just trying to remove some of them. But at least he'll get 4 HP back from the Vicious anyway, but he will be putting a shard down just to hold back the Tyrant just a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the Vicious Scalehide is just so deadly here. Ben could think about playing this deckhand this turn as well, just to get the 4/4 on the board. Looks like he's going to. Because next turn he'd be able to play Mimic Pod Giggling Inventor potentially now, if he just front loads the mana here. So I think this makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, it was a shame that he was so it's twice now. He's been so close with his token Druid, but it's getting to a stage now where, you know, Ben could easily take this. You know, like I said, but like you mentioned before, of course, you know, he's going to get that Giggling Inventor down, 3/4/4s with the Taunt and Divine Shield's not exactly going to have much of a great time, and we'll have to see exactly what he gets from that Mimic Pod as well. Might get enough to even take Bilbz over the edge and take this to another Game 5, another one.
3 5-game series all in a row.
Yeah, they want us to be here till midnight.
This has definitely been a quicker series though.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
The games have been so much closer. There's not been 30, 40-minute long games this series. Bilbz's lineup made sure that wasn't going to happen.
Well, I think one good thing is the fact that your game would have actually been the last one. Even though it's being played off stream, it would have been the last one. So, yeah, we would have been here until 1 AM.
Yeah, it really would.
I'm like, come on, Kieran, hurry up. I want to get ahead. But it looks like he's going to try and do what he can anyway, but he's going to find out quite soon it's going to be quite difficult. But even after this, you know, we've got to take into account that, you know, he's got that Soul of the Forest down, so at least that way he can trade with whatever happens afterwards. But we'll have to see what he gets from this Mimic Pod as well.
Yeah, this Mimic Pod into Giggling Inventor just definitely looks like the play here. The Giggling Inventor just needs to block lots of attacks from the Token Druid side. Especially when they're 4/4s as well, it just makes it so difficult.
Yeah, he's just trying to play it extra safe as much as he can. Of course, you know, he can easily trade 2 of those minions into the Divine Shield, so that's not really too much of a bother anyway. And I'm glad we saved the Power of the Wild, but, you know, if he gets the Branch or anything like that later on, then could seriously cause some issues. But it's just a matter of when he'll get it. Maybe he'll get it from the Wild Growth, or maybe we'll get it for something else afterwards. We'll have to see. Yeah,
Ben choosing to not go for the Mimic Pod here, instead just going to play for board a little bit more. I think that actually probably is a little bit more sensible here, just because the Mimic Pod can give you things to do with your mana, but next turn it's quite light anyway. He's quite light on what you can do with his mana currently, so he's going to want to just probably Mimic Pod next turn and then just play whatever he gets off the pod.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, he only gets another Plague anyway, so it's not going to make too much of a difference here. Like I mentioned before, we'll see what he gets from that Wild Growth coming out next. But, you know, it's not too much of an issue, but, you know, we'll get that 6 armor down anyway, and we'll get a Violet Teacher out, or maybe a Taunt up anyway. But at least he can get rid of his Divine Shield, but even then he's going to have to try and figure out another way out of this. I think he's trying to decide whether he wants to use that Power of the Wild even now or next turn, but I don't blame if he does do it for next turn, because at least he gets those extra 2/2 minions on the board afterwards.
Yeah, definitely.
Starts to play anyway, though.
Yeah, I think he's thinking he just needs to top deck something very powerful here, like a
Savage Roar.
Savage Roar. Maybe an Ultimate Infestation would even be enough, just because he's thinking, well, Ben's hand's running quite quite light here. He's got, you know, 3 cards on his turn. How much can that really be? Obviously, we can see it's a lot of gas. It's a lot of card draw.
But even though that Shadow Step, you can also bring that Inventor back and put another one straight back on the board. He's just trying to see now exactly what he wants to do. See what card draw he gets next time round. So
yeah, Shadow Step. I think you're right. Shadow Stepping this Giggling Inventor and then just playing Zola on it now is kind of insane. It gives you so many minions.
Why have one when you can have 3? Why not?
Yeah,
Jesus.
definitely.
Yeah, he's definitely... Oh, I feel so sorry for Bilbz. He's been so close. He was so close to that Token Druid a couple of games ago, and you know when you're about to try and win a game, you're so close, and you just get edged or anything like that. He's kind of feeling like he's gonna have a bit of a flashback at this stage.
Tell me about it.
Yeah, you've been through that phase anyway, haven't you? Oh, we'll have to see anyway. So he will, of course, bring that back.
Yeah, I mean, just getting this extra Giggling Event is just so difficult for the Token Druid to deal with. I mean, Bilbz has shown he's really struggling to deal with it for the last few turns anyway, so getting extra ones here just makes so much sense.
And it's quite funny, he's still got those 2 plays, but again, he can't do anything about it. And how many Solar Force has he used? I think he's only used 1, if I remember from the top of my head. So at least he's got another, even though he does have another Whisper of Gods, he hasn't really got enough cards to kind of lay down. And you know, another Infestation or Nourish would be good here as well, just to kind of keep the tempo going. Because, you know, with another Inventor being put down after this, if he does trade off, even though he might leave it a little bit, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. Could be the complete opposite end for Bilbz here.
Yeah, this is just definitely not the position that he wanted to be in. I mean, obviously he wanted to just take this quite quickly, but Ben was able to get the quest done pretty early. It looks like he's going to go for the Spreading Plague here, which I just don't think it's going to be good enough, but he doesn't really have many other options in his hand. That's the main issue he's got here. Yeah,
he could put the Tyrant down straight afterwards. I think he was just trying to figure out a way to trying to not only trade, but try and at least get something on the board at the same time. At least make those Plagues a little bit useful, but even now he could do with a... not even a Nourish, I'll put an Infestation at this stage. At least he'll take out a minion, get a 5/5 on the board, get some more card draw, at least have a bit of armor to keep himself going a little bit.
Yeah, and Ben's just finding more and more card draw for keeping his game going, basically. It's just so difficult for...
And he's just drawn another one.
Yeah. I think Bilbz is really going to struggle to get through this now.
Yeah, it's going to get to that point now where he needs to try and find... Well, don't get me wrong, Bilbz has got one of his own, but it's not going to be full rounds. But you're absolutely right, though. He's going to really struggle here. But one thing to take note of, it does have another Plague to delay things further, but, you know, Ben's going to keep building up the amount of minions he has, and when he uses that Mimic Pod for later, depending on what he gets, it's going to be even worse for him.
Yeah, I mean, this is just really delaying the inevitable. Ben does have Fan of Knives still, I believe, so potentially could Mimic Pod into Fan of Knives, clean up the whole board, and just put Bilbz in the same position again.
Just absolute madness. And even, oh my god. He can bring back 2 more inventors now, so yeah, I think, even though it was, like you said, a delayed inevitable, which he absolutely is, but at this kind of stage in time, to have another 2 more, so technically he can play up to 5 here. 5, that's like, gosh, that's taking the mickey.
Yeah, really, it's really difficult for Bilbz here. I'm not sure how he can quite get there. He doesn't quite have the reach damage with swipes or anything like that, so...
Yeah, he's got pretty much 2 dead cards. You're not going to put a 4 mana down for 3 1/1s at this stage, or 2 1/1s, of course, when he does put it down, so that's completely out of the question. Giggling Inventor will just delay things, but even if it delay things, I think it's got to a point in this game now where the longer this draws out, the better position Ben's going to be in. But having a full board or 4/4s with a few damage ones here and there, you can't really complain. He needs to, I was going to say, try and take out this other Inventors, at least that way it makes it not as bad for him, but he can't. He has to leave it on the board. So what's he going to do? Of course, he's just going to pick it straight back up again.
Vanish as well if you want some more giggling adventures.
He can make it 6 if he likes. He's probably thinking that, but he's like, nah, I've got to, you know, I don't want to take the mick too much, which is fair enough. But yeah, no, it looks like Bilbz is completely out of options. You know, Ben's having the time of his life, loving life. He can trade for days, bring that giggling inventor back, put it straight back on the board once he's traded to cover his minions with those other Neutrons and stuff. Yeah, it's not looking too bad. He needs to make sure he keeps trading though. He's only on 9 HP, but in all fairness, I think it's pretty much done. It's been done since 4 or 5 turns ago, and it's just a matter of time before Bilbz taps and Ben takes it pretty much.
Yeah, Ben is actually going to consider using this Vanish here. I think if he just gets these giggling inventors back, it's so difficult for him to lose. But then it does give Bilbz the giggling inventors back. It's a very, very awkward board state, I think. But
you'd rather have 3-4-4s rather than 2-1-2s and a 2-1. Like, it's kind of hit and miss, really, isn't it? To that extent. But of course, gets one anyway. Trades off the original one and using the shard, and doesn't even need to bring another one back anyways. Obviously more than a good spot, and I don't know why we're even talking about this. I think we all know as well as the viewers now, but
yeah,
it's pretty much said and done. And
yeah,
an infestation, that's nice, comes a little bit too late. Could have had that about 5 turns ago, but you know, it happens. Bilbz will of course tap eventually. Call it a day. That did work.
This is not. Though. Yeah, this is. I think this is still lethal with the Vanish Boar, Brew Boar. I think this is still lethal.
But he does have that swipe.
So 7 4s are 28, he's on 31. Yeah, this is just going to be
John deal. That's a shame though. It's typical to get that swipe so late as well. And that was another thing as well. It's like I was mentioning Ben didn't have one Vanish all game, but then again, you know, Bilbz didn't have a swipe all game at all, which was a bit of a shame. But of course, Ben will take that with that ball, and another game 5.
Another game.
Third game in a row, game 5.
People take their elimination week serious.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, to be fair, I'm sure Ben will, because he won it last season. So I don't think he wants to go from first to, I suppose, technically top 12 or something like that around that stage. I want to say top 16, top 12. I think it's 14. Like, yeah, because it's weird. I'm not used to hearing the phrase top 14, because in the games I normally cast, it's normally either top 16 or top 12 and top 8.
Oh, okay, we don't really, you normally don't do top 12s in Hearthstone.
No, I have to get used to that one, to be fair. But of course, you know, Ben, not out yet. It's still going to take it to that game 5, and for a second time in a row now, Bilbz is just having an issue with his token drip. But do you feel like Bilbz will have maybe have a better time now that he's playing against Ben's Death Roll Hunter, but considering the circumstances Ben has to go through, considering what he has to play in that?
Yeah, I mean, the Hunter, the only AoE it has is Deathstalker Rexar. So it's a one-off card, it's a legendary. It only does 2, so if he's able to double power the Wilder board, not going to be able to AoE it down that way. Once he is Deathstalker Rexar, he can build sort of bloat bats that do things with like Poisonous Rush, that kind of thing. But it's good. Basically, it's going to be, can Bilbz create a board that pushes damage and Ben can't deal with it, and that's kind of what he's going to look to do and what Ben's going to look to stop. Yeah,
this is going to be the issue now, because like I said, it's the whole AoE situation. He's only got 1 and he's got a couple of strikes on that on top of that, and you know, he needs to try and find just some way to even just trade off. But you know, if he can't get his minis on the board straight off the bat, you know, with the different ways he can at least, you know, unleash those death rattles and get those 5/5s quickly, then, you know, Ben could even potentially go out here. And it's like you mentioned before, you know, with Bilbz Token Druid, if he gets a really good start, like, you know, a Wild Growth and a Nourish and, you know, see you later on your bike and all that business, then, you know, that could be it. That could be said and done, really. Yeah, it's definitely going to be a really close one. I mean, also, from the other side, if Bilbz has a slow start, Ben can just have the egg, the activator, get your hand. That can happen. Obviously, I want this game to go the distance. I want it to be the long slog where both are just teetering on the edge of stopping the other lethal the whole time. You know, an interesting game. It's gone the distance.
We'll be able to see another Keleseth for Ben. I think that's his second Keleseth in the second Hunter game. I think so, yes. And Bilbz has got Wild Growth twice on the trot as well. So, yeah, this is definitely going to be a very interesting one. We spoke about it before, and it's like, you know, each of these matches have been really good so far. It's literally gone to the wire every single series, and I don't expect anything less from this one as well. The only problem is Bilbz has, you know, has a Wild Growth, great, you know, has a Spellstone to maybe deal with
something small to begin with. But even now, we'll have to see what he draws in his next few turns.
Yeah, I mean, Ben just full kept this hand because it's kind of insane. You play the Kalaseth on turn 2, coin out Houndmaster Shaw potentially into a flanking strike, then the flanking strike minion has rush. But the wild growth into Violet Teacher could be good enough. This is definitely going to be an interesting, and the King Crush pickup's not really what Ben wants, especially with this Katharina in hand.
That's probably the quickest turn I've ever seen Ben play it. Consider it's like, oh, another Kalaseth. But no, you're right. It's we'll have to see how things go. You know, I can see from now he wants to play that Violet Teacher early, but it's a problem. He's going to have Savage Roar is absolutely no use at all for a good few turns at this stage, and he can Spellstone it. But then again, would you want to do it this early against a Kalaseth? You don't really need to. You want to save it for later on, where you want to maybe hero power into. Use that Spellstone later on against one of the 5/5s or at this kind of stage. But
yeah, the Violet Teacher was just so risky with the to a coin flanking strike.
And the Hunter's Mark.
And the Hunter's Mark, yeah. Unfortunately, the Houndmaster Shaw is going to be a real issue for Bilbz, I think. Bilbz doesn't have like a Whispering Woods now to just generate a board immediately. The Violet Teacher is just a bit slow. Obviously, the Violet Teacher Spellstone gives you 1 minion, but then does just die to a flanking strike by itself. But maybe you just need to do it, try and get to this, make Spreading Plague a bit better.
Yeah, that's one thing to take into account. He hasn't really had many opportunities to kind of make Plague in any way, shape or form to be of any use. He did it last game perfectly fine, but that was completely different. That was Quest Rogue. You can't really stop Quest Rogue once it's, you know, once it starts its engine. That's it, really.
Yeah,
you might as well say see you later. But does get that play dead. So that's very, very vital now.
Yeah, I mean,
this kind of situation.
It's just an insane turn for Ben now, being able to go egg into play dead. Still has the flanking strike as well for anything that does come down. I'd be very surprised if we didn't see the Spreading Plague out of Bilbz here. Though the Whispering Woods could change that.
High roller Ben. I think he's definitely going to need it this time.
You said it, not me.
I'm allowed to say it, I think. Actually, no, probably not. But, you know, I'm going to say it anyway, just for the giggles anyway. But, yeah, you're right, though. You know, he does have that Whisper of the Gods, but it depends if he does want to use it or not this early on. He hasn't really got anything to play it with. Of course, it's too early to use that Soul of the Forest and all those bits and pieces. Hasn't even got that card yet. But I think he's going to play it safe. He's going to say, you know what? I may not have a better opportunity to use this Plague now, so I might as well use it just to delay things further to, you know, get some more things on the board. So, fair play to him.
Yeah, definitely. The cube pickup here, really, really powerful if he just decides to play the cube on the egg. I mean, alternatively, he could just play the flanking strike, but I think cubing the egg, because both the 5/5s get rush, it's the 5/7 cube, sorry, and the 5/5 Devil Saw. It's just, it's too powerful, I think. But Ben's going to go for the Hunter's Mark flanking strike. I think there was a lot of merit to just playing the cube there because of the rush. But obviously Ben deciding not to.
Do you feel like he's done it because of the fact that he wants as many minions on the board as possible in case he does play Whisper of the Gods? Because I think we spoke about it before where we were saying, well, you know, he's got no AoEs. He's got one technically, and that's about it. And that won't be till a little bit later into the game. But when you kind of think of it in this kind of circumstance now, it's the problem he had before. You know, you need to get as many minions out as possible to trade. You have really no choice. It's kind of like playing against an odd pally matchup. You know, when they keep hero power in and, you know, using all the bits and pieces and all the tools, you know, you need to trade one way or another. And it's, you know, basically another scenario. I'm sure Ben's played plenty of odd pallies to know that you've got to get as much stuff on the board to trade rather than
yeah, I think
those AoEs.
I think Ben's was more concerned there that Hunter's Mark's really difficult to get value out of in the matchup, and then the 4/4 Tyrant we had to trade into either this 5/4 or if he had a swipe, he'd be able to swipe the 5/4, trade the Tyrant into the Shore, that kind of thing. I think that was what Ben was more concerned about here, but I think he knows he's going to be able to just get this cube on this egg anyway, so it wasn't in a rush, just decided to cash in on the Hunter's Mark flanking strike, which makes sense. But now he loses the Shore and won't be able to trade the cube minions here. So he's going to have 2 attacks this turn unless he top decks Rexar. Top decks Rexar, it's going to be insane. Oh, it didn't happen. Oh, the Giggling's really good still, though.
Yeah,
Giggling blocks these 1/1s so well.
No, you're absolutely right as well. It's could only ask for 2 more in all fairness, and you know, you could have queued the egg as well for later on, but you know, when you've got that many minions on the board, especially for a token druid, you don't really want to see it. And look at that, it gets that Soul Force just a little bit too late. But what you could do is you could put a Violet Teacher down, get a Soul Force on the board, so at least he's got 6 minions on the board to kind of give Ben a bit of a workaround. But
yeah, I think that's probably what you're looking at here. The alternative is to go for the Nourish ramp to just commit to Infestation next turn. But I think that's actually a little bit too slow, as crazy as that is. And here you can now just pass the turn, potentially. You might want to knock the Divine Shields off with 1/1s, actually. It's kind of difficult. I think maybe he should knock the Divine Shields off because he's got this Savage Roar that he wants to cash in on. And if he has 2/2s, that just lines up so much better against most of the board.
I suppose it's a question whether if Ben does want to trade or just leave the board how it is, because, you know, he's got the numbers. He's got, if we have a look on the board at the second, he's got 13 damage per turn, 15 including hero power. And of course, he's got that King Crush later one as well. It's a shame because he can't actually get it from his 8-mana card anyway, so that's a bit of a bummer. But we'll have to see how it goes. But it looks like if he does trade with a couple, then hopefully it will force things.
Oh, I don't think this trading's very good. I'd have much rather just trading into the Divine Shields and passing.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Another giggling. Wow.
Here's another one. Yeah.
So obviously Ben can just trade off his 3/1 here if he wants to, or the 3/2 create board space for the giggling. Potentially cube the egg, but I don't think that's as powerful here. But yeah, I think Bilbz made a lot of attacks there that just shouldn't have happened because what he's done is made it so that Ben can actually trade off minions and kill them. Here's the Savage Roar in hand, and what he should have done is just left the minions on the board.
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised by that. No, I can.
Like the 1 power into the 1/2 just didn't really do a lot. What he did was he attacked it 3 times, so he essentially gave it triple Wind Fury, which I don't think was particularly...
Well, at least he can get some card draw now anyway. He can place Infestation maybe on the 3/2 or something like that, so at least he'll keep something on the board.
Still a turn away from it though, that's the problem here. I'm surprised Bilbz isn't value trading the 1/1 into the... sorry, Ben isn't trading them. I guess he doesn't want to buff the board, but I guess that makes sense. I think I would have liked to see the hit there, though.
Yeah, it does
punish his cards like Power of the Wild.
Maybe a little bit too late, but I don't think it would have made too much of an impact anyway, especially at this stage. But, you know, he's got a couple of bits now. He does have that branching as well. He does have the Power of the Wild from maybe later on, but he hasn't really got anything else to play with.
I think looking at Bilbz looks exhausted. I don't know.
I think he's got itchy eyes. Like, you know... Oh, okay, I don't suffer from hay fever, but some of the itch my eyes a little bit if I don't know, if you get shampoo in your eyes or something like that and you just itch it like consistently like the whole time. I get that quite a lot, especially in the evenings and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah, he's having what I'm having. It's not hay fever, but I don't know what it is. I can't explain, but now I've just itched my eyes. I'm itching it a little bit. And James just mentioned that... I'm trying not to laugh as I was saying it. He's getting allergic to RNG. That is brilliant. That is... That won't surprise me. He is allergic to it. James is absolutely spot on, and even now it's been doing it for the last 5 minutes. Allergic to RNG. That was a brilliant one.
Yeah, he is quite upset. He's playing from Duncan's house, by the way.
Would be. Is that whose house, sorry?
Is it Duncan's? This is Duncan's living room.
Oh, yes, of course. Yeah, I didn't even think about that, to be fair, because with Duncan, he sits quite slouched, so you can see, like, in the background of what's going on, so you can see, like, pitching and stuff. But because Bilbz has been on the right side the whole time, I didn't even realise. Good shout. Not good shout, good awareness.
Good
mine.
Players' living room knowledge.
Yeah.
That's actually my mastermind specialty topic. Speciality.
Did you ever, I don't know if you're a bit young for this, but remember a show called This Is Your Life, or This Is My Life?
Yes.
Yeah. So like they, you know, oh no, not that show. It's called Through the Keyhole. It's back in the early 90s where it's like, whose house is this? And you go through the house and it's like, you look around. But the thing is though, you would just know whose house it is straight away just from looking at their living room or their bedroom. Like, yeah, I know that. That's Duncan's, that's Bilbz, that's Ben's, that's someone else's. I don't know, every single player's pretty much.
Yours? I know yours.
Do you? Oh, okay. Oh, well, I've not been playing, so I don't know how you found that out. I can probably figure out a way as to why.
It was from back in your Halo days, I promise. I haven't followed you back from the Prem at all.
I don't blame you, to be fair.
Meanwhile, in Hearthstone things, Bilbz is going to go for the clear the board and then go for the ultimate infestation as a follow-up.
But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Of course, he will get those trades off anyway. But even now, I love how the only card he's got left in his hand is literally just all card draws.
All card draw, yeah. Ben with a choice here. I think the flanking strike on the 5-2 looks really, really clean. The King Crush isn't quite lethal, so he can go for the flanking strike on the 5-2, cube the egg, just get huge board presence. And Bilbz is going to really struggle to deal with that. The Ultimate Infestation can hit the 5-5, but it's not great. They can even just trade the 3-2. I mean, he could go face to sap lethal because I don't think there's any way that Bilbz could generate lethal with just those minions. Just going to have 10, 16, 19 power with the Crush.
Oh, yeah, it's an extremely difficult decision. It's like you mentioned before, even if I was going to save it, use Infestation on and 6-3, you don't know what else could come out, mate. I assume a high main?
High main and a Grizzly is left, but also Bilbz doesn't know that the King Crush is in hand, so that's a possibility. I think Ben could definitely have gone face with the Katharina there rather than trading. But
I do like that play though. At least he takes out the 5-5.
This is 1 off lethal, I believe. There's 14 on board. Oh no, with the King Crush and the Candle Shot, it's exactly lethal.
Again, another match where he'll most probably be winning.
King Crush closing out 2 Hunter games today.
Yeah, what a surprise! And both of them being in hand and not from the death row.
Yep. Yeah, Ben just counting it, making sure he's not about to embarrass himself.
Not doing a Leroy where he's counting it at least a good 6 or 7 times, getting his scientific Casio calculator out just to make sure it's that kind of circumstance. But no, Ben, mate, I'm not gonna lie, you had a bit of a run in there. It was down 2-1. We were talking about how this is unfavourable, this is unfavourable, but yeah, he had the minions on board to at least trade off and make sure things will go all right. But I think the talking point as well is the fact that Bilbz didn't really have much to play with from the start, in all fairness, didn't he? And the fact that Ben had the openings to which he wanted, then yeah, it was all said and done for that stage.
Yeah, the opening Ben had was able to just block the Violet Teacher from Bilbz, and Bilbz didn't really have any alternatives. In the end, had to just go for a Violet Teacher much later on, so it just sat in hand for a very long time, not